Feelin Good, sponsored by the Warren County Community Services. Today, I am delighted to say that we are featuring a friend as well as, I would say, a co-worker when it comes to Channel 6 and the production of Feelin Good and the City Show and all the other programming that Channel 6 is a part of. And Dave Woehr is our guest today. I'm interviewing Dave. And I was delighted to find out a few things, several things, as a matter of fact, that Dave is experienced in his retirement years. And I wanted to get a chance to let you know a little bit more about some of the special topics that Dave focuses on. So thanks for being with us today, Dave, in front of the camera, not
Thank
behind the camera.
Right.
Great, great. Well, let's start off with retirement years. Tell us a little bit about how long you've been retired, where you retired from, and what your retirement, kind of reimagining the next chapter of your life, sort of helped you get into what we're going to talk about today.
Okay, I retired 15 years ago from the General Electric aircraft engine business in Evendale. I had been doing that work for 40 years at the same plant, going in there every day, and 40 years of it just seemed like enough. And I was getting tired of it. I mean, I could have worked probably another 5 years at least, but I was getting tired and frustrated and wanted to relax and enjoy retirement. I mean, I've known people that didn't have long retirements, and I thought I'd like to retire and make sure I do have a reward at the end of those work years.
And your background at GE was that?
Engineering. I was a mechanical engineer, designing engine parts and testing them and getting them qualified for both military and commercial engine airplane service.
Very good. So, 15 years you've been retired?
Been retired for 15 years. I thought about it. What am I going to do in retirement before I retired? Everybody needs a plan. So I made a plan, but I didn't stick to it very long. And I'm not sure why, but I decided that I wanted to retire and do some traveling. I wanted to see places in the country that I hadn't seen before. I wanted to travel to places in the world that I'd heard about that I hadn't been to before. And coming from my family background and traditions, I wanted to do a lot of outdoor things, hunting and fishing, things that I enjoyed while I was working when I could get away from work.
Right.
But it turns out after I retired, I didn't really do much of any of that. I did very little traveling, practically no hunting and fishing. And I got to wondering after about a year, was that the right thing to do, to retire?
Oh, okay. So kind of rethought that decision.
I did rethink it, and I decided to go back to work part-time, and I did that for 4 years while the pieces kind of came together and fit together in my mind, and then I pulled the plug for good.
Okay, very good.
And so it was kind of a stumbling start.
And you originally lived in Hamilton County?
I lived in Hamilton County in Montgomery.
Oh, okay.
And we were in that house in Montgomery for nearly 30 years. We raised 3 sons in that house. And then after retirement, I said, you know, this is an awful big house for 2 people to be in. It's got 5 bedrooms. And there are 4 rooms in the house that we don't even go into anymore.
Right.
And it's a 2-story house to maintain and keep up with. Why stay with that as we get older? That's going to be too much. So we decided to downsize. Ended up coming to Lebanon just to get away from the hustle and bustle of the Hamilton County,
right. The
pulse.
urban or suburban area.
Yeah. So we came to Lebanon, and it turned out that was a good choice. And we got a smaller house, only 3 bedrooms and 1 story. And now 10 or so years later, that downsized house is starting to feel a little big, you know, for maintenance and upkeep and everything. But we're going to stick with that for as long as possible. And we found Lebanon to be a very friendly community that accepted us. And my wife and I each went out and started meeting people in the community and finding out what was available. And we each have our own separate niches of interest that we enjoy individually, plus a little together time too.
Good. So today we're kind of zeroing in on nature.
Really,
and
yes.
since we're starting the spring season, we thought this would be a good a topic to cover. So tell us a little bit about, since you changed from the idea of doing, travel, said maybe not so.
Right. A long latent hobby that goes clear back to maybe even high school days was nature, and nature photography especially. This is the day of the film camera.
Yes,
And
I remember that.
yes. So I had all along, in some of my spare time, high school and college, gone out into the parks with the camera and taken pictures of wildflowers, of plants and animals, insects, butterflies, and so on and so forth. And that kind of got put on the back burner during my career years, not too much of that going on. And then when I retired, I thought, I think I enjoyed that enough that I'm going to make that my own personal hobby. I just want to go out, get a digital camera, and learn a new technique for photography, and collect some pictures of things that I can look at when I'm in my rocking chair in the older years when I can't get out on the trails anymore.
Right.
And so I've collected thousands of pictures with a digital camera. And I do just look at them quite a lot. And I put them on photo sharing websites like Flickr. And then I look at the pictures of millions of other people who also put their photos on those websites. And that's how I get some traveling done. Because a lot of people are in the Colosseum at Rome or on the Great Wall of China. And I can see those things just as clear as if I were there now with the technologies that we have today.
Right. Well, did you start taking photos, say, in your backyard, or did you go to a favorite park? Or?
Well, I did some backyard. I still do some photography in the yard. I mean, I have a backyard for wildlife.
Okay.
And so the birds and the butterflies and other insects are attracted. We are on the edge of town, so we see an occasional deer, which poses in the yard long enough for a photo. So I do that. But yes, I decided when I moved to Warren County to explore the parks. And we're lucky here to have as many parks surrounding us as we have. We have city parks, we have county parks, we have township parks, and a couple of nice nearby state parks.
Yes.
So I visited them all. And I had my camera with me and my binoculars around my neck. And pretty soon people began to notice that this guy's always in the parks with this gear around his neck taking pictures.
Right.
And so the question was, well, what are you doing here? And I said, well, I'm just enjoying the parks and taking photographs for my hobby. And one day I had completed my circuit of visiting all of the Warren County Park District's parks. And a lot of those are nice habitat parks. And they had some trails, and they had some places where I thought they could use trails that they didn't have them. But they were mostly parks that were supporting athletic endeavors, soccer fields, ball diamonds, playground equipment. So I went to the park office, and I walked in one day, and I said, the only person at the office that day was the administrative assistant. She's the office manager of the park. I said, do you folks promote nature at all in the parks? And the answer was a little bit vague, and it just seemed like they were more active sports oriented. So I took a bunch of pictures, and I said, you got a lot of habitat, and we might as well promote it and get people out into it to enjoy it. And she said, why don't you come? We have a park board meeting tonight. It's every month. And this month it's tonight. She said, why don't you come and meet the commissioners? And so I went to that park board meeting and I grilled them.
There you go.
And I said, you know, what qualifies you guys to be park commissioners? Are any of you naturalists? Do you know what you have back in your habitats? And here is a little photo album of some things I took in your, pictures I took in your park. And they looked at that and they said, well, we thought maybe we had some of this stuff back there, but we
Never
really
took
haven't.
the time.
Yeah.
Really never took the time to
So
take photos.
with that, the nature program started to grow. And they handed me a brochure about the Ohio Certified Volunteer Naturalist program, which is offered by the Ohio State University Extension, similar to the Master Gardener program.
Yes.
Very, very similar. The programs are cousins. I don't know why they don't call us Master Naturalists. Every other state with a program
Maybe
like
you
this
should go to
does.
their board and mention that.
I have. I don't know what their reason is for that,
Right,
but
right.
they call us Ohio Certified Volunteer Naturalists, which is a mouthful that I hate saying over and over. So most of us just say OCVN, Ohio Certified Volunteer Naturalist. So they twisted my arm several times over that summer to take this course of Ohio Certified Volunteer Naturalist, and I did finally, and I became certified. The course
I
comes.
see your binder here.
The course comes with a training manual.
And that has several sections of
Yes,
material in it.
it does. And so in those sessions that we are trained from, we have chapters on ornithology, which is the study of birds, and we study fish, we study mammals, we study plants, wildflowers, trees, we study soils, geology, ecosystems, even stewardship, which is the proper care and preservation of land and habitats.
Right, right.
So all kinds of topics were taught in the Ohio Certified Volunteer Naturalist training course, and the mission of the course is to take that knowledge that you're given and go out and share it in an educational way with the public, the visitors to the park.
So did you take this through the extension office, or did you have to go to Columbus? Or?
No, we took it, at the time it was not offered locally, it was offered out of the Greene County Extension Office. So we went to Xenia, but then they came down here and gave us some training in local parks too. The Xenia people came down and we had some classes in Armco Parks Pavilion. We had some classes at Cedar Creek. We had some classes at Cowan Lake. And there were various state parks that we could go to because at that time people were coming from 13 counties to take the training. Now, since then, we have broken up the areas of the state so that the training can be received more close to home for most people.
So you took the training, and what did you think about it? I mean, was the training for folks in our audience that might consider it? Was it friendly in
Definitely.
terms of it's not like overwhelming?
It's not overwhelming because it's not a PhD course. It's an informative course. It's a handing out of knowledge, and in fact, I refer to this all the time. This manual. It's taught at a level that's very understandable for, it might be late high school, early college level material, but if you haven't had a course in biology for 40 years, it's a good refresher.
Okay, very good. So then tell us more now about what you do as a volunteer.
Well, as a volunteer naturalist, I began by leading nature hikes in the Warren County parks once a month.
Okay.
And that has that's a program that has grown. There are now other OCVNs in the area that support also the Warren County Park District, like I initially did, and do yet to some extent. And so there's a team of us that conduct programs in the park as volunteer naturalists. Another thing I did is I went to back to the board a year ago the county park board, and I said, you know, I think this would work better if we modeled our nature programs in the county parks the way they do in the state parks. I think you should probably hire a staff naturalist and let that naturalist build a team of volunteer naturalists around him or her to run the programs. And so they took that advice and did it, and they hired a lady by the name of Shannon Russell, who is a naturalist and who teaches nature in the Kings Mill School District.
Oh.
And she has been the mother hen since then to the local OCVNs who are surrounding her and supporting her with her programs. And we are doing more outreaches now with our community, who the more we reach out, the more we found there's an interest there that they've been waiting for to show up.
Right. So when you talk about outreach, what types of community groups and organizations do you visit, and how would they get in touch with you if they wanted to have you organize a program?
Usually they'll get in touch with the Park District office, who will reach out to one of the naturalists.
Okay.
And now there are several of us. We also do that in the city of Lebanon with the Miller Ecological Park, which is not part of the county park district. It's a separate district, but we have half a dozen OCVNs supporting Miller Park now too. So you can get in touch with the park offices, or in the city's case, the city office, or on their Facebook pages, and we always arrange programs for people that want outdoor programs, or there are people that want indoor programs, a speaker. And so it works both ways. We've done a lot of both. One of our big events in the Warren County Park District every year is a February event of all things, which is when the Audubon Society conducts what they call the Great Backyard Bird Count. And it's a worldwide citizen science project where people count birds wherever they are, and they can report the tallies of the numbers of birds in each species that they see online to a database that then the scientists can analyze and say, well, I wonder why this population of birds is going up or down in this area. Is there a reason we ought to know about and make use of?
Well, I heard just the other day, I think it was on a PBS program, that many times people travel based upon if they're bird watchers, and they design their whole vacation time or trips based just upon watching a certain type of bird or a certain kind of, area that supports different, types of animals in general. But have you ever done that?
I have not done a lot of that myself because of the crowds. But there is the annual spring bird migration, which here in Ohio usually draws a lot of people up to a place called McGee Marsh on the south shore of Lake Erie, where birds migrating north to their Canadian nesting sites will stop and rest for weeks before they go across the lake and into the northern forests. And that just draws thousands of people. And they have boardwalks through the marsh and everything, and you see all kinds of birds that you wouldn't see any other time of year. But I'm not one to mingle with thousands of people. My nature experiences, I like to be a little more quiet and personal.
And smaller groups.
Yes.
Well, which brings me to asking you, what size groups do you normally take on these tours?
Whoever shows up gets taken. Now we've had a wide variety of participants show up for various outings, anywhere from one, which I've had happen, and that's not enough. We don't cancel just because one person shows up. We go on the outing, and that we've done. And then we've had as many as 40 or 50. That's a little too big, especially when you're outdoors and you get strung out on a nature trail, and your voice gives out, and you can't make the people at the back of the line hear you, and they can't hear you, and you can't hear their questions. So I prefer something in the middle, like 15 to 20 people. And generally that's good for outdoors. Indoors, it's a little easier. Sometimes you can get a microphone and be heard in a room. Gave a talk a month ago at Otterbein to well, not just the Otterbein residents, but people from the public that were invited to come to that particular presentation. And the talk was on coyotes. And there was a lot of interest in that. So 50 people or more showed up in the meeting room in Otterbein, and we talked about coyotes for an hour because there has been a lot of interest lately with the increased population of coyotes and people encountering them more. So there were a lot of questions.
Oh, I'm sure.
And a big turnout for that. And it worked very well with a room with a microphone and overhead speakers where you can be heard without straining your voice. And so it was a narrated slideshow with pictures and facts and figures about coyotes. And we did one last week. Peggy Logue did the program last week at Otterbein on, she had just come back from a vacation, winter vacation in Florida.
Right.
She took a lot of pictures of the Florida shorebirds, many of which will migrate back here, and we'll be seeing them anytime now, and they'll be breeding and nesting in this area. And just for free, she threw in a few alligator pictures too. So she had a nice vacation in Florida.
Yes, yeah. I saw those photos, some of them on Facebook. So and she is she also part of this group as well, the volunteer group?
She is. She's a volunteer naturalist, an Ohio Certified Volunteer Naturalist. She became certified several years ago, and she volunteers with the Warren County Park District and with Miller Ecological Park. And she's giving a talk or a walk in Miller Ecological Park coming up in early April to mid-April, and that's going to be on the creatures that inhabit Miller Park. So that's advertised on the city's website and on the Miller Park Facebook page. So anybody that's interested in that can check those specific times and dates out.
Okay, very good. Do you ever get into the schools?
Yes, occasionally. In fact, Emiko Moore, who is our host for the city show here at Channel 6, has a daughter in high school in a science class that that class, Emiko tells me, is looking for a speaker to come and talk about nature as a part of science because, of course, in high school, one of the science classes is biology.
Sure.
And so that fits right in with nature. So we're looking to see if that's a possibility for a class presentation. And in the past, I was asked to talk to a class in Franklin. I forget just which school that was, middle school, I believe. So it does happen. And some of the local business organizations and clubs ask for speakers too. I've talked to the Rotary Club and the Lions Club, the Kiwanis Club, the Garden Club. I don't know if the Waynesville Progressive Women's Club is still in existence, but several years ago they invited me to come up and talk to them. And then I mentioned Otterbein. Those folks are neighbors of Armco Park, and Armco Park and Otterbein make good neighbors, and they do like to keep this relationship going. I've spoken to Otterbein people a number of times over the years, and the senior citizens groups too like to have lunchtime speakers sometimes, like the 741 Center across from Otterbein I've spoken to, and then St. Susanna's down in Mason has a senior citizen group that has asked me to speak to them a couple of times.
So really, this has grown in terms of, I mean, you're a volunteer, but when you're passionate about it, you enjoy sharing the knowledge and just your joy about the topic.
The OCVN program has opened a lot of doors for me that I did not foresee. Actually, Channel 6 does a nature program here called Nature's Program every month, which is a program hosted by the naturalist at Cedar Creek State Park, Aaron Shaw. And so I became acquainted with that program. I think I was invited to be a guest on it early in my years as an OCVN. And then I began to show up and watch the program go together on site where it was being recorded, whether I was a guest or not. You know, not to be on the program, but just to watch how they were doing it.
Right.
And our producer at Channel 6 noticed, here's that guy with his camera and binoculars around his neck again all the time, watching us put this show together. And he finally said, you know, you got a camera around your neck all the time. How would you feel about standing behind a video camera in the studio and helping me out with some of the programming we do at Channel 6. So that's how that
So that
opportunity.
link led you to, and how long have you been working the
Volunteering
production
at Channel
here?
6, 5 or 6 or 7 years, something
Okay,
like that.
okay.
I'm almost starting to get proficient at it. but
There you go.
not
There
quite.
you go.
Just-
Isn't that interesting, the way one,
It is.
you know, kind of like you say, the pieces,
Dominoes.
if you allow them to kind of take shape and so forth,
It
you're
has been
amazed at-
amazing to me, and no wonder I don't have time to travel and see the country anymore with all the local volunteer
Right,
opportunities
right.
that have opened up.
Well, you emailed me something just today that you're going to be doing another show. You're becoming, you're a star now.
I don't think it's a show. I think it's a segment on an early morning news program,
Okay.
isn't it? Maybe.
Okay.
Fox News wrote today, I'm doing a nature program at Fort Ancient in April.
Okay.
It's the Spring Nature Walk. And you know, Fort Ancient is not just an earthworks, it's a nature preserve with trails. So I've been for years doing quarterly nature outings on the trails at Fort Ancient. Well, Fort Ancient contacted Fox News and they wanted to advertise this upcoming spring wildflower walk at Fort Ancient. And so Fox News wanted somebody to come up and talk about that in a little bit of a segment on one of their morning programs. So the email trickled to me today, and I think I'm probably going to do that.
You're
Go
going to
up and-
need an agent pretty soon.
Oh, boy.
Well, I think it's great. I enjoy, I mean, I knew a little bit about, you know, just as we had chit-chatted about this and that concerning some of the tours, but I had no idea, you know, your journey that you had taken to get to where you are today
Interesting
and so forth.
interesting how the door opens and then the next door and then the next door. Another interesting opportunity in recent years was we had a lovely little newspaper here in town called the Lebanon Local. And just about the time they went into publication, one of the journalists there came to me and said, you know, I know you have a lot of photographs that probably are colorful and would show up nicely in the newspaper. Could you do an article in the paper on the parks, local parks, and nature preserves and nature itself? So for 4 years, I had an article or a column called Nature Close to Home in the Lebanon Local. And we did put a lot of photographs in that column along with the articles each time. And the feedback from the public was all positive. Again, the outreach let us get the feedback that people are still interested in nature if we can just break them away from their technological distractions. And so they're very interested, and we had a lot of positive feedback from that Nature's Corner, our Nature's Close to Home article.
Well, I know just, you know, with grandchildren and so forth, I think it would be great to bring them along. I mean, if there are any tours that are geared, you know, maybe specifically for intergenerational, you know, types of things. I know you can't take them everywhere, but, you know, there's probably, you know, tours that would be better for them.
One of the things your young grandchildren might enjoy is a program that the Warren County naturalist Shannon Russell conducts in the summer down at the Landon Deerfield Park. And she calls it Tech-Free Tuesdays.
Oh.
And the mothers bring, the kids are out of school, the mothers bring their kids, and some of them are just babes in arms and all the way up to young teenagers in junior high. And she conducts a weekly program in Landon Deerfield Park, a nature program, and the kids love it. And that started out with about 5 people attending, and it grew to 20 or 30. Peggy Logue, I believe, helped with that, and some of the other OCVNs have helped with that program, and I have. Different topics, hands-on activities, poetry, storybooks. One particular event was about the Little Miami River and what lives in the Little Miami River. And one of the speakers brought a bucket full of fish. And one little girl had the opportunity to put her hand in the bucket and feel these live fish, and you should have seen the look on her face.
Oh, I bet.
Wide-eyed amazement. And with all of the programs, somebody's eyes are opened up that way to nature, and it gives them an exposure that many times will stay with them and cultivate that interest the rest of their life, like it did with me. I got it from my parents. I taught it to my kids. It's passed on down to my grandkids now, and it's a generational thing. I have heard many naturalists asked the question, how did you get interested in this in the first place? And so many of them say, I owe it to my parents and grandparents. So that's how we can keep it going.
Very good. Well, I could sit here and talk to you for days about this, but where do we find out about this program in the summer? Will it be on Channel 6? I mean, will it be on
We can put it
calendar?
we can put it on community calendar. We can put it on. It'll be on the Warren County Park District's webpage.
Okay.
Our Facebook page.
Okay. All right.
And
yeah, definitely. I'd like to do that with my grandkids.
we try to get announcements out there for people to find where we are and what we're doing, and everybody's welcome. The programs are all free.
Okay, wow. Well, you can't beat that,
No, you
right?
can't.
Well, Dave, thanks so much for taking the time today to, share with us your journey, and it sounds like you're in the midst of many different activities.
Everybody's retirement story is different, and that's mine.
There you go. Thanks again. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
We hope that if you are interested in learning more about becoming a volunteer naturalist, I'd say contact Dave
You can do that.
and through Channel 6. And we are so happy that you joined us today. We appreciate our audience so much, and Warren County Community Services is delighted to bring this program to you. So we hope that you are feeling good. Bye for now.